Yeah, so Liverpool Without Walls has come from the need to get our restaurants open again, so allow recovery to begin. So in order to do that, when you have social distancing in place, clearly any of our restaurants, cafes, the like, with social distancing, 2-meter distance around tables, significant impact on the ability of those businesses to be viable, because the number of covers will be down to 25% of normal capacity.
Yeah.
So one way of increasing covers is by moving businesses to allow them to take space outdoors. And in a city centre, that's taking business covers onto the pavements.
Right, yeah. Why did you want it?
So the idea is that here in Liverpool we will look at, why? Because we need to get businesses operating again. So we've got a great...
Why specifically this idea of like bringing it onto the streets? Why like specific areas? Was it like Castle Street, or like what areas of Liverpool?
The key area is, first of all, is obviously, if the only way you can expand a building is by, well, clearly you can't expand it by taking the walls down. Or put an extension on. Well, you can, but how long does you know all about planning and construction, how long that would take. This is one that, so already businesses have pavement cafes. What we're looking to do is just to increase those pavement cafe areas to allow more businesses to have more space, but to do it in a way that will also, as well as pavement cafe works great on a day like today when it's stopped raining, but how do we do it long term? And then also, how do you increase the paved areas? Because our pavements are either Victorian or Georgian in their original concept. A lot of our city centre is laid out on 18th century, in and around the Castle Street and the like. So you have to reduce the roadways, and that's why. So you reduce roadways by increasing paved areas, by traffic measures, and then you can allow restaurants to come out.
Yeah, is there any sort of style that you've got behind it?
At the moment, we are working with Arab.
Right,
So Arab are working across, are bringing in specialists from across the country to look where ideas such as this has already happened on a temporary basis. So the idea of a parklet, which is very much a concept that you would know about. It's North American. And you look across, so take out a parking bay and put into that parking bay a structure that will allow tables and chairs safely. And that's the thinking behind it.
Right, okay, that's cool. So with the funding from this, is it just all private, or is it like from the council as well, or is it public?
The funding, the initial tranche of monies, which is £450,000, has been provided by the public sector and particularly by Liverpool City Council. So this is using an allocated fund from one element of council spending and transitioning it to use for the benefit of the private businesses and the restaurants, to allow restaurants to reopen, to keep the visitor economy moving.
So with that, like, what partners, as well as Arab, you just mentioned, what other partners is there into the...
So it's Liverpool BID Company and Liverpool Chamber of Commerce working together with the City Council.
Right, okay.
They're the key three parts. It's led by the City Council, but the Chamber are providing, and ourselves are providing support and working on the criteria for businesses and the application process. And then we've brought in Arab, and there'll be other designers that we will work on as this develops.
Right, okay.
So this isn't the finished article, this is the start of a process.
Right, yeah, because it did say, when I was reading one of the reports, it was like saying so everything will be finalised or something mid-June. Would you say you're at that stage yet? Like,
well, we're at the stage of having the concept into a position where we can go public with it later this week to accept applications, and then it will... As that's the first element of it, but it will develop over time.
Right, okay. You were saying about pop-up cycle routes, like what was the idea behind this?
Well, again, part of the, if you want to try and get our economy route running again, you've got to get people moving.
Yeah.
We absolutely encourage people to use public transport, but there's a strange anomaly at the moment, is that we're trying to dissuade people from using public transport in numbers and to look at alternative forms of transport. In particular, not shifting everybody back to private cars, but getting people to look, particularly for shorter journeys, to look at cycling and walking. And so to improve the safety of cyclists, we're looking at cycle routes from the suburbs into the city centre.
Right.
And that's part of that real reason, because social distancing, public transport won't have the capacity for everybody to use them again. So it's part of us rethinking the city, which is, I think, is a great opportunity for us to re-engineer a city in the way that we want as the people. I mean, we're trying to deliver a very fast response to an ongoing situation, but also always looking to the future to have these changes so they're implemented, but they will be sustainable. And that's part of the complexity of this, because we're trying to do something, particularly Liverpool without walls. We're trying to move something very quickly, but always have the eye on the long term and what's the long term benefit to the city.
So,
because as a city, we've declared a climate emergency.
Right. Yeah.
And we've declared that the city wants to move towards carbon neutrality by 2030. So we need to improve transport in a way that is looking towards that carbon neutrality, which is why cycling or e-scooters are all good ways to look at.
Yeah, so would you think you're in like a higher position than say like any other cities? Because if you're like our city, like Liverpool's the first city that's like actually come up with an idea.
I think with this scheme for restaurants we're the first city, we're taking a lead on it, as opposed to other cities at the moment. But other cities are looking at it. And you look around Europe and around the world, it is happening.
It's all there already.
And other cities are doing exactly the same, about allowing restaurants to start using roadways.
And what would that mean for like the transport through Liverpool? Would it just be like cutting off streets like permanently or like temporarily for that?
Well, part of that is providing sort of pedestrian priorities at certain times. And restricting. So, I mean, we know in our city centre, Liverpool 1 and Church Street and Lord Street are already pedestrianised. And the traffic is only allowed in there after 6 in the evening or before 8 in the morning, or before 10, no, sorry. But we look at, so that will happen in places like Bold Street and Castle Street.
Right, So, because I was always thinking about that Bold Street, because a lot of the workers there are like the shops visitors, they don't want to close it or anything. Like that street, they just want to keep it like you can go through it and stuff.
But I think Bold Street, you will see, it will still be used for so if you have a business there, you can get distribution, you can get servicing. But in terms of car parking and driving a car through Bold Street, that is going to change completely.
That's going to be strange there, because it is quite a narrow street anyway, Bold Street.
It is.
It will be interesting to see how the restaurants like come out there. And
actually, no, I mean, Bold Street is a case in point. Bold Street is very much modelled on, it's a late 18th century, early 19th century street. It's one of the original, again, streets of the city. And when we take the cars out of it, the buildings are beautiful.
They are.
So Bold Street will look completely different when restaurants are allowed to open onto the pavements and people are allowed to walk.
So will it be all like the businesses working together, like say with the council and the Liverpool BID to try and make this outdoor space, or will they just be working like sort of on their own?
And we are working in conjunction, so we work with businesses to enable this. So infrastructure will be purchased on behalf of the businesses. So rather than leaving, because what we want this is to have, is to provide some cohesion to the streets.
So you can't just like look all messy, like sort of like a fashion going across. No,
and you can't all just send people off to various
do what they want
stores to get the chairs and tables and umbrellas. And, it needs to look, it needs to reflect the quality of the street.